Yo, yo, what's going on, everybody? Ryan the Mighty Quinn here, the cornerman underscore MMA. UFC 289 fight week. Fantastic. Fighters are on their way there right now. It's Tuesday. I believe champions left yesterday. Any 5 round fighters left yesterday. Uh, so we're going to do a breakdown. We're going to start doing things a little bit differently. We're going to do multiple fights on the main cards, and sorry, some of the feature fights on the lower cards. On feature fights on the preliminary cards. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the Nunes Aldana fight. I did a full video on that about a month ago. You look back on the Fight Look playlist and listen to what's going on there. But I will reiterate the main tactics. I think that the main strategy for Aldana, being the strong striker that she is, strong boxer that she is to keep her hands in Amanda's face. That's where Juliana Pena had some success in her first fight, and just keep busy. Just keep busy. Just try to get Amanda from being able to time those great angles that she does with her striking, particularly with the right hand. I think that's her best bet here. And then Amanda, I think that Amanda really needs to just create those angles so Irene Aldana doesn't have to start, or isn't able to start just coming forward, and getting in her own rhythm. Now, that being said, I do believe here, despite any way you look, I believe in by the middle of round two, you're going to be seeing who the winner of this fight's going to be, plain and simple. Is Irene going to be able to implement that game plan that I just said to you and stay busy on Amanda and keep pestering her to where Amanda gets a little fatigued? Or is Amanda just going to do what she does and just start landing right-handed bombs until she can come to a finish, either standing or on the ground? All right, so let's go to the lower ends now. We're going to start with the number 13th ranked featherweight Danny Ige, fresh off his knockout win over Damon Jackson against Nate Landwehr. Nate's unranked. He just had a finishing victory himself with a rear naked choke. Great fight. Um, I think that Nate really needs this to get in the top the top 15 the top 15 rankings. And it's a very dangerous fight for Ige in some aspects. So let's break this down. Who wins and where? Now, uh, I think that if Danny just do what he does, that he's going to have a lot of success here. I think that's on paper. This fight definitely favors Ige. Now, I haven't looked at the odds of any of these, by the way. I haven't looked at the betting odds, but I think that if Danny could just come forward, sometimes I get a little weary when you see fighters coming forward that drop bombs, and they tend to be, I don't want to say flat footed, but heavy footed. But Danny's so good with his power striking, with his power punches, similar to what I just mentioned about Amanda, where he has these crazy angles and he is able to move his head with his punches and stuff. Not to mention the great wrestling that he has. So I think that Danny just needs to find a way to back Nate into a corner and just throw those bombs to the body, to the head. That's the other thing, is when people think that, oh, he throws bombs, they immediately think to the head. Danny is a, a great he's a great example of where he could throw bombs up and down the ladder, as I say. He could bust up your ribs, take your breath away, and then come back up top with stuff. Um, I forget the knockout sequence against Damon, but that was more or less what we saw there. He's pretty quick with the bombs too. So that's what I'm doing if I'm Danny. Staying patient, walking down my opponent, and just setting up those big bombs, right hands, left hooks, overhand rights, stuff like that. Now, if I am Landwehr, now uh, I hope Landwehr trained more volume, higher boxing with this fight. I mean, not to get in these, not to get into the slugfest with the heavy-handed Danny Ige. However, um, he doesn't show a lot of volume, and he tends to get on his heels a little bit. In his last fight, he did that. He does have an okay front kick, but I don't think that's going to be very effective here against a Danny. Now, I wouldn't let Danny try to come forward and and try to do some counter striking. I think Danny's he's too much of that snowball fighting effect for that. If I'm Nate, I got to establish that feint, which he does actually have a very good feint. He does actually have a very good feint. But unlike previous fights, he's going to have to throw some punches after and before the feint. More after, because Danny comes forward pretty hard. So he's going to have to sell that feint and throw a straight right hand, left hook, throw a straight right hand, front kick, things like that. And he's going to have to pepper this fight. He's going to have to keep distance and try to have some confidence in his hands to come forward with the 1-2s. Now, I do think that he would have great success not necessarily standing his ground in the center of the cage, establishing the center, because remember, when people tend to take their ground in the center of the cage, sometimes they kind of stand still. Now, standing your ground kind of is standing still. So against a Danny, if he can't get you against the fence, if you're standing still out in the open, it's almost equally as effective. So he's going to have to throw those feints, 1-2s, 2-1s, feints, jab, front kick, and then just create that slight angle, sidestep right, sidestep left. Create another angle and stay busy there. Continue it with another combination. Probably stay there. Try to stay within that range for a good 20, 15 seconds, 15, 20 seconds tops, and then move and move and move. But don't let yourself back into a corner, because remember, that's Danny's plan here. Danny wants to walk you down in the corner, use some lateral movement to paint yourself there, and then throw those bombs. So Nate needs to do a lot more of that, plus the head movement, which he actually has pretty good head movement from what I've seen. So he needs to feint, 1-2s, feint, move the head, try to do shots to the body. Maybe if he could, if the front kick's not, if the front kick isn't working on Danny Ige, it's because Danny's closing the distance very well. So you could shorten that up, or the secondary approach to that game would be feint and right hand to the body, and then jab up top, as opposed to Danny's right hand to the body, left. As I've said so many times before, a right hand to the body is a great staller, so to speak. Create some space, get out of there. Plus, it scores to the refs or judges if nothing's going on. Okay, so adjustments. If Danny needs to make adjustments, it's going to have to be early round two. He's got to win that second and third round, because he's not able to get his opponent into the corner, or he is kind of getting there, but he's taking damage. So, as we know about Danny, he's got really good wrestling. Just go to the wrestling. He's going to be able to do that here, because if he's going forward, that means that 8 with the game plan that I've implemented is definitely staying in range of those takedowns. So he's also presenting takedowns, because Nate's going to have a lot of 1-2 stuff that Danny could shoot under. He could shoot under anything, but against somebody like Danny in this aspect, against an opponent like Nate, trying to shoot underneath I'd be trying to shoot underneath anything straight. Don't shoot underneath the feint, but then again, if he's shooting underneath the feint, it's because the feint was sold. But I would definitely try to shoot under the jabs, the 1-2, stuff like that, and take him down and just control him. Now, Nate has a ground game, so Danny's going to have to establish that old school wrist control and try to establish ground and pound there. Don't jiu-jitsu ride. You got to wrestle right here, preferably against the fence. Use those bullying tactics. This is the adjustment game plan for Ige. And if I'm Nate, I'm getting bullied. Like I just said, I'm getting bullied by Danny. So what do I have to do? I have to just try to cover up, get on my horse a little bit and start landing some low kicks, jabs, low kicks. If my plan's not working, it's because I'm not selling my feint. If Nate's not selling his feint to Danny, then he's going to get eaten up. So he's going to have to go to strict jabs, mix the feint in a little bit, and then throw low kicks to try to pace his opponent. He will have to make that adjustment earlier than Danny. My guess is probably end of round 1, just to try to get a feel and establish for round 2. And then he's going to have to just pepper. It's just like he's going to have to go from peppering with boxing to peppering with kickboxing, is what I think. Because I don't see him out wrestling a Danny. He does have a pretty good body lock. which kind of could be dangerous to go for against somebody who's so heavy-handed with the looping punches, but it is a possibility if he can get that body lock. I would try to let that kind of present itself against the fence in those 50-50 areas, which would happen in this fight. You could see a good cage battle here against who wins the fence wrestling. That could be a big aspect here. That could win a round one way or the other. So we'll see with that. Looking forward to that one for sure. All right, then the co-main event. We have the number 1 ranked Charles Oliveira against number 4 ranked Beneil Dariush. Beneil's been on a great win streak of late. He's really looking for that title fight. Charles took a little time off after his loss to Islam, and I said lightweight, right? Yeah, it's lightweight. And this is definitely a fight where we're going to be seeing where these gentlemen are going, plain and simple. I feel like that they both, whoever wins this, I mean, well, it's a lot of argument coming. I know we got a big fight here with Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier for the BMF belt. Is that a title contender? I'm not sure what the press or what Dana White's saying about that. I don't believe so, but there's a good chance, especially with both men coming off of big wins off of Chandler and Fiziev. There's a good chance that that's a title contender too. But whoever wins this fight between Dariush and Charles Oliveira is a very, 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 has really set they're in a good place. Let's just say that. Similar to what Dana White just said about Alex Pereira if he beats Jan Blachowicz. Will we see the winner of those two fights have a number 1 contender fight? Probably not. Probably someone's going to get the title fight. But, all right, we're not calling that a title fight yet, but let's just go to what we were saying. So now if I'm Charles and I'm with this fight, I don't want to say Charles would be a slow starter here, but I could see him kind of feeling stuff out against Beneil. Beneil is really strong. So if I'm Charles, though, I'm going to try to establish some low kicks. Because I think that Beneil's going to need to try to. I don't want to go into Beneil's game plan yet, but I'm going to try to establish some low kicks. Those 1-2s, those nice 1-2s he's got, 1-2 low kick, 2-1 and move, stuff like that. Just make him kickbox with you. Make him kickbox to start. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If I'm Charles Oliveira, but if I'm Charles, just start with the kickboxing and try to score there. I think it's very important for Charles to win round 1 in this fight. More important than it is for Beneil. Get into that in a second. Now, he's got to establish those 1-2s, and then just keep moving. Beneil eventually will have to try to grab him, and the grappling's going to present itself. Charles is one of the trickiest fighters we've seen with guillotines, taking the back rear naked choke. And I think that stuff, he has a way of making his opponent do that. Sometimes by pestering and damaging with that kickboxing that he has. He's such a good athlete. So I would just open up with the kickboxing if I'm Charles and keep moving. Make Beneil get frustrated. Then when Dariush comes in, that's when you can either pummel, and keep away back to the kickboxing, or make it that grappling game that he has. I do think here a guillotine would present itself against Beneil Dariush more than taking the back. That's me personally, just by Dariush's stance and the way he comes forward and the way the scrambles would present itself against Charles Oliveira. I could easily see, I could see Charles pulling off a submission in this fight. I really can. Just depends what Charles shows up though, right? So we'll see. Now, if I'm Beneil, things got to be a little bit more calculative. Beneil seems he could be a little stiff sometimes, which is horrible against the Charles Oliveira. So he's really going to need to focus on similar to Landwehr, establishing that feint, and keeping the center, more so than Landwehr has to do in his fight. What does keeping the center do? It forces Charles to try to have to be a little more calculated in his own right, because that means that Beneil Dariush is not biting on certain aspects with the striking, particularly with the boxing. So if he's keeping the center, he's not going against the fence, which is where that grappling presents itself that Charles is so good at, that fence grappling, that fence jiu-jitsu that Charles has. And then Beneil could establish some hands. He's going to need to do that. He's going to have to figure out how to establish a jab in this fight. Establish the jab, and then eventually just slowly pepper his way. Once the boxing is presented itself, how do you know the boxing's working for Beneil? Charles is going to be getting his hands up tight. He's going to get that high guard, and then Beneil's going to be able to throw some punches to the body and some body locks. I think that Charles is going to, Beneil's going to utilize those body locks here, not even necessarily if it's to score, but if it's to slow things down against a more athletic opponent. I think that those body locks are going to be able to present some dirty boxing for him, or it's also going to be able to takedowns if needed. I would do the best I was can. Like that's one thing that Islam had really good success against Charles that other people really didn't use. He was good at taking Charles down off the fence as opposed to against the fence. Beneil needs to find a way to do that here. Now, how does he do that if he's not setting up the body lock? He's going to have to start shooting under the 1-2 head movement punches that Charles does so well. So adjustments. If I'm Charles and the 1-2 kickboxing isn't opening up the game like I thought it would, I'm going to have to start coming. And like I said, it's important for Charles to win round one. I think that it's important for Charles to win round one because with those body locks I mentioned about Beneil, he could use those to chew some clock later in the fight, particularly rounds 3, end of round 2. So this is a game, it's a clock game, it's a clock management game, which people don't realize like anything else, unfortunately. Now, like I said about the adjustments for Charles is because he's kind of getting the wet blanket on. Maybe he's getting his jab touched up. So what does Charles have to do? Charles is going to have to get a little bit more aggressive in his own way, right? And force that tie clinch. Force that tie clinch. Don't let the tie clinch come to you because then it's going to be a 50-50 hand fight against Beneil, who he could be pretty good in those aspects. Force that tie clinch and light that body up with knees. Light that body up with knees. Yeah, get greedy. Get greedy. Light the body up with knees. Try to throw him against the fence and then force that jiu-jitsu there. Force that cage jiu-jitsu there. So you're going to go from kickboxing. That's the other thing that people don't realize. The difference between kickboxing and Muay Thai. Muay Thai is kickboxing with the knees, elbows, and the tie clinch, okay? So you're adding some more strike there. Headbutts in some areas in Asia. Obviously not mixed martial arts. Kickboxing is just the boxing and the kickboxing. So Charles needs to adjust from a kickboxing game to a Thai boxing game. And in order to make adjustments to win this fight if he lost that first round. And if I am Beneil, he's probably losing this fight because Charles is just dictating the pace on the feet, plain and simple. So he's going to have to, instead of just trying to establish that jab, similar before, shoot under to that body lock, shoot under to a single to the fence, and he's going to have to gamble a little bit where Charles is so dangerous. But he's going to have to control. He's going to have to score that dominance to the judge's scorecard. He's going to have to control against the fence, control on the ground, which is pretty much where Islam beat Charles. Similar stuff like that. He's going to have to slow it down a lot. I like doing it with front headlocks. I don't really know if Beneil Dariush really has good front headlocks in his game to stall things up a little bit. But that's what he's going to do there. And he's going to have to make that decision quick. Like, I don't think in this fight that, like I said with the Amanda Irene fight, I don't think necessarily that this fight, I don't think necessarily that whoever wins round 1 is going to win. Like I said to Amanda, whoever's winning by round 2.5 in and round 2, I don't think that necessarily is going to happen here. I think that some finishes can present themselves, particularly in Charles's area. And I do think that it depends on what kind of Charles shows up. I don't have a set time as to set here for you live line bettors like I did with the Amanda fight. But I think that Beneil will need to slow this fight down aside from establishing the jabs and getting some body locks if he wants to pull off this victory against an Oliveira. Anyway, it's going to be a great night of fights. Really looking forward to it. Please let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, and share. Check out these on the Betting Bananas, Fight Bananas, and Betting Bananas platforms, podcast platforms. Thank you guys. Bye.